My client saw herself as an introvert, and as a result, she was always struggling with connecting to people and having opportunities in her life that she would take up. In fact, she always thought of herself as this introvert that doesn't like to be around people, and the longer she stayed this way, the more it impacted her self-worth, about what she believes about herself, and that totally destroyed her confidence over a long period of time. The truth is, she was low in confidence because she always feared being seen, in case she felt humiliated, in case she wasn't good enough, and the awkward feeling and behavior that was generated from that made her stay in the shadows. She lived in the shadows until it impacted all of her abilities to take up opportunity, impacted her relationships, and it even impacted the way her children saw her. We went through a 4-stage process that I take all of my students through with the Quranic Science of the Nafs therapy and psychology model. We use this to actually help her to overcome her mental blocks and rebuild self-confidence, rebuild self-identity so that she could actually flourish. And within a short space of time, she started flourishing, her relationships changed, she stopped being this low confidence introvert, self-identified, and she started actually taking up opportunities in her life. If this is something that you are struggling with, you're going to love this. We learn about how to go from fear to confidence and actually build it and keep it, and you can do this. Anyone can do this. This is revelation based, and you're going to love this. Stay tuned. Assalamu alaikum, and welcome back to this week's episode of the podcast. This is actually a very important episode for building oneself, to build your confidence, to actually overcome the fears that many of us get caught up in and stuck in. In fact, fear is such a debilitating emotion that what happens is that when you fester in this fear for a long period of time, what it does is that it stops you from taking up opportunities. It stops you in your mental and emotional growth. And what it does is that it serves as a block that has you believing that you are less than what you are. And this is the reality. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches us in the Quran that the shaitan, he uses fear to induce bad behavior. He uses fear to induce the kind of behavior that actually stops you from getting the results that you want in life. And this is such an important thing to understand, because when you fully understand this and understand the effects it's having on your life, you're going to stop identifying with the tags that everyone's throwing around like it's the norm. In fact, it has become the norm that you hear, people identifying as introverts and extroverts, people identifying themselves as I'm an anxious person, or, just the awkward behavior that comes out of an individual that impacts the relationships that they have with their family members, let alone the relationships that they have with other people. So if you have been struggling with any of these things and you're ready to build your confidence, like the 4 things that I want to go through with you in this episode is going to help you immediately. This is therapy based. Is coming out of what I do with my clients in the environment of therapy and growth. But ultimately, you don't need to wait for anything. You can take what I teach you in this episode and start applying it in your life. You don't need to do all of them at one go. In fact, if you try and do all at one go, you're gonna find it sometimes a bit of a struggle. So what I suggest is that you take 1 or 2 of the principles, if you like, and start applying them into your life. And what will happen is that you'll start to see a very gradual but immediate shift. And when I say gradual, if you keep on doing it, it's going to help you to completely overcome the mental rut that we get caught in and start to develop a confidence that you can actually take into the workplace. It will help you to flourish in your relationships, in your career, in your business, and ultimately it makes you feel good about your life. So this is actually something that you're probably going to want to listen to a few times until it fully resonates, fully percolates, and gets into the deepest parts of you. And essentially, in the science of the nafs, one of the things that the Prophet ﷺ, he said, in the science of the nafs, I teach this as a foundation because this is foundational to mental and emotional well-being. The Prophet ﷺ, he said that, there's a piece of flesh in the body, either salahat al-jasad kulluhu. If it is made sound, if you make it good, all of the body is good. So what we want is that we want the body physical body to be good, but we also want your life to be good. And you're the one that determines your life. So as you go through your life, if your behaviors and everything is being driven by the emotion of fear, then what's going to happen is that it's going to hold you back. It actually doesn't help you to progress. It actually holds you back. Even though very often, we're taking massive action based on fear. But what we actually create, results that we create, we're not happy with, we're never satisfied with. And so we're in this forever cycle of trying to find something or have enough to feel as though we are enough. And you, by the very nature of you being the creation of Allah and the way that Allah created you perfect, it makes you enough by default. The problem that we have is that the fear makes us always believe that we're not enough. So what we want is we want to replace the fear with confidence. And confidence is a skill set that you have to build. Confidence is not something that people are just born with. Very often you see people and they're talking a lot and everyone's paying attention to them, and you may look at them and think they're an extrovert. They are someone who's confident. They're someone who's able to carry themselves. And you can look at them and start to despair because you feel as though you don't have the same. And I want to suggest to you that don't always think just because someone talks a lot or is, taking up a lot of the social space that they are super confident. Because very often when we are nervous, what we do is we talk a lot. So there are some people that shut down and don't talk much when they're nervous, when they're feeling anxious, and others when they're feeling anxious, a bit nervous, they talk a lot and they laugh a lot and they crack jokes, and they do this to almost like protect themselves and cover themselves. So whether you are an introvert or an extrovert, whichever one you identify with, this will help you. So here's the thing. If you want to take control of your level of confidence, confidence is a feeling that you feel. It's an emotional experience. If you want to take control of that and you want to feel more of it, so that you can actually flourish and you can do more in your life, then the first thing you got to take control of is the very thing that controls it, which is your mind. Your mind generates all of that emotional experience, whether it's fear, whether it's confidence, whether it's feeling secure, feeling overwhelmed. Your mind is generating this. And this is why if you focused in on the state of your heart, and this is what the mind is in Islam, like you focus in on this, then what will happen is that it has an effect on the whole body. It has an effect on the way that you stand, the way that you stand tall. You're not trying to hide away in the shadows. You're not trying to blend into the wall so that you can't be seen, so that you don't feel humiliated or you don't feel like you're on the spot. Because we know when we feel like we're on the spot, you start to have this reaction, physical reaction, and your throat dries up. Social anxiety is like a direct result of it. And as that happens, what happens is that we go back into our mind and we start to overthink everything. And what you want to do is you want to not overthink everything, and you want to use just a few hacks to just break out of it. Now, the hacks that I want to talk to you about is really, these aren't hacks, but these are things that are going to help you to break out of this fear or anxiety or social anxiety even. And what it's going to do is it's going to help you to actually start taking action immediately. Now, one of the reasons why we feel this fear and this anxiety is because, and it's often when we are trying to do new things, right? So whether it be to do a presentation or go for a particular type of job or to get married or to, just to have a new relationship with the people at your workplace or people that you've just met, like whatever it is, wherever you feel lacking in confidence, it's usually to do with people, right? So whenever you feel lacking in confidence, like what's happening is that you're going into your mind and you're getting into overthinking, and you're thinking about what you look like and, how you're being perceived and whether you look stupid or you look, plausible, that what you're saying sounds right. And the minute you get into your mind about what's happening, what will happen is that you will start to feel the fear, and it will start to build up, and it will become more and more. And as it builds up more and more, you start to get hot, you start to say things and behave in awkward ways. And then people look at you funny, and then you're thinking, oh my God, I'm doing it again. And so in order to break that, one of the things that you can do immediately is to stop being a novice, stop being a beginner at doing the thing that you're doing. So very often what that means is that we're trying to do new things and we try it once, twice, thrice. We feel fear, we feel anxious, we feel like we're not doing it right. And the minute you do that, you want to give up and you want to back off. And this is what happens to people who very often consider themselves as introverts, if you like, who are not putting themselves out into a new uncomfortable space. So the way that we deal with this, and the way that you should begin to deal with this, is that you start to take action on becoming someone who is comfortable. Get into your uncomfortable zone, because this is discomfort, right? Get into this zone of discomfort, and in this space, just do the same thing over and over again. You see, when you feel like you're a novice, you're new at this is the first time you're doing it or the third time you're doing it, like it still feels very, very uncomfortable. And an easy way to do this is to just keep on doing the same thing over and over again. Now, when I say the same thing over and over again, I don't mean making mistakes. I'm talking about like attempting to do something, but doing it until you no longer feel like a novice. When you stop feeling like you're a beginner, this is not the first time you've done it. In fact, it's now the 100th time you've done it. Then and only then are you in a new comfort zone. So what we're doing is that we're getting out of our comfort zones and we're creating new comfort zones. When you create a new comfort zone, you're going to feel this initial fear, this anxiety, and you're going to want to back off. When it doesn't look right, when you feel as though people are looking at you, you're going to want to back off. But the more you do it, the more you're able to do it. It's a little bit like that person who is center of attention amongst the group of people and they're always doing all the talking. And you're looking at them thinking that they are so confident, but what they do is that they repeat the same thing over and over again until everyone just becomes used to it. They become used to it. And the more they do it, the more they're used to it. And they realize that actually, I don't have to feel anxious. And if I jump in and do this more, then I'm able to overcome the fear, the anxiety, the negative anticipation, and I'm able to just get through it. And that requires for us to do number two. Number two is to actually have courage, practice courage. These are skill sets, right? You want to practice courage, and courage is having the fear and doing it anyway. But practice courage in short spans, like short sprints. Instead of really working yourself up, having a lot to think about, and then going out and doing the thing that you want to do, and by then you feel so anxious, you do everything wrong. Right? So instead of doing that, what you want to do is you want to just run straight into it. You want to run straight into it, almost like give yourself a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and run. And when you're running, like literally we're running mentally and physically if need be, but we're running straight into action. What that does is that it short circuits or it circumvents the obstacle of overthinking and the negative thoughts and the anxiety and fear that it induces. So you don't give yourself enough time to actually do that. So what that does is we do it in short sprints. What that means is that you do it and then you stop. You do it and you stop. You do it and you stop. But because you're doing it and you stop, you give yourself a break and then you do it again. And you don't give yourself enough time to think about it. So as an example, people struggle with getting up for Fajr. Getting up for Salah early in the morning, especially here in the UK where it's like at 5 a.m. or, sometimes it's even earlier. So when you are getting up for Fajr, like what it requires is that it requires for you to just get up, not think, and jump out of bed, right? You could count 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and jump straight out of bed. The minute you do that, you get straight into action. As soon as you're in action, it doesn't require any more courage. It doesn't require any more motivation. It doesn't require any of those things. What it actually does is that it creates the beginning of momentum. And once momentum gets going, it's much easier to keep it going. So the beginning is the most important thing. You just need a quick sprint of courage. Make it a quick sprint and just run straight into it. And the minute you do that, then what will happen is that you start to actually get the results that you're after, which is maybe praying salah on time, which is to, go out and take opportunities, which is to not say no to every opportunity that comes your way, which is to get married, which is to, have good relationships, whatever it is that your lack of confidence is impacting. When you do this over and over again, it takes us back to point one, which is that, essentially you're rinsing and repeating in getting yourself out of this discomfort zone and getting yourself into a new comfort zone. You're in this comfort zone already, and so what happens is that we tend to want to stay comfortable. It's the way that we've been designed. Allah created us this way, in that we work most efficiently when we are in a comfort zone. But when you're in a comfort zone for too long, what will happen is that you're not so efficient anymore, because you keep on doing the same thing. You're not growing anymore. So what we need to do is we need to jump out of the comfort zone into a new comfort zone. The new comfort zone is not comfortable, but it's going to become that comfort zone, because you're going to rinse and repeat. You're going to do it over and over again until you're no longer a novice. And that gives us the ability to follow that up with short sprints. Those short sprints, these two go hand in hand. If you did this every day in any given area where you lack in confidence, you're going to find that within a short space of time, as short as 7 days, as short as 30 days, you will find that you will be much more comfortable with doing this. I find this very often in business coaching when I'm coaching my clients with their businesses where they're struggling with fear of the outcome, fear of not making enough money, or fear of being seen. When they take massive action immediately with short sprints of courage, what we do is that we circumvent the obstacle, the mental obstacle, and we get over that and we get straight to action. The minute you're in action, then you're moving. And this is momentum. We've now got momentum, and these are two skill sets that will help you to build your confidence. Now, the third one is essential. I put this third because it is something that prevents us from building that confidence. Like, it's the comparison problem. When you compare yourself to other people, the problem in this is that you may look at them and think how great they are, and then you look at yourself and you become self-critical. So you're overthinking. What it does is that it creates this inner critic, and you compare yourself to other people. You look at yourself as though you are less than them. And then what that does is that it begins on the path of being self-critical. And when you start to criticize yourself, what you're going to do is you're going to destroy your confidence. You're going to pull your confidence apart, and you will stop believing in yourself, because ultimately it's the belief in ourselves that make us as confident as we are. If you do these three things, you stop comparing yourself, stop looking at other people. If you find, especially in the business space, you find yourself comparing yourself to other people, or you're looking to get married and you'll find yourself comparing yourself, like, this body image that everyone is really focused on. Why are they so focused on this body image? Because they're comparing themselves to other women, other men, and they look at, you go onto social media, you see everyone go naked, and then it makes you feel as though your body isn't the way it should be. And the reality is that if your mental image of you changes, you stop being self-critical, you stop poking holes in your own self-image, then what that does is that it starts to be replaced with your new self-image, which is to have good thoughts about yourself. As you start to have good thoughts about yourself, you start to label yourself in the positive, not the negative. And I say again, I want to just point out, I don't want to say that labeling yourself as an introvert or an extrovert is positive or negative. But if it prevents you from the life that you want, then it is a negative thing, right? In which case you should drop these labels and not use them. Because ultimately, how you speak to yourself, how you think about yourself is determining how you feel about your life. And we want to change that, and we want to create the results that we want. And if you want the results that you want, then I want to suggest that you actually focus on not labeling yourself in the negative and stop comparing yourself to other people. You want to be not doing the comparison thing. And then, of course, we get to the final one, which is the dealing with the inner critic. Dealing with the inner critic, because the inner critic actually dismantles your confidence. The inner critic is the problem at the root cause. So what we want to do is we want to stop the inner critic. And one of the ways to do that is for you to actually champion yourself. Like championing yourself, people don't feel comfortable doing it. I know that because in therapy, as we're going through a process, or even in coaching or business coaching, like very often the obstacle in the way is the inner critic. We think it's the circumstances, the people in our relationships, but it's actually the inner critic. So as an example, one of my clients who was struggling in her relationship with her husband and her children, thinking that they are the problem, she's thinking constantly, they're critical of me. They're critical of me. They're always, whenever they say anything about me, it's always negative, right? And really what's happening is that she has this disagreement with herself mentally, and she believes that she should be one way. This is how my life should be, and this is what my life is. And the gap in, what the reality is in her mind is making her believe that she's not good enough. So if she has a conversation with the husband and the husband says, you could have maybe done this different, she will take that and internalize that as he's criticizing me. He's telling me that what I'm doing isn't good enough and I should do it different. And if the children say something similar, then she has the same relationship with the children. But what happened there was that she was always second guessing herself. As a result of hearing them say what they were saying, she would second guess her own decisions instead of standing up for what she's doing and saying that actually this is the best way to do it. And having confidence about it, what she would do is she would back off and she would take whatever in her mind is criticism and feel as though she needs to conform to that in order to be acceptable, in order to be enough. And what this created was the feeling of low confidence, low self-worth, always feeling as though someone else needs to tell me what to do. And she overcame it using these principles. Of course, we went through a process of coaching her through her mind and emotions and behaviors. But as she went through this, she learned how to deal with her mind. She learned how to actually have courage in short sprints, because you don't need to be this courageous person that is always standing at the top of a mountain like Superman or Superwoman. You don't need to do that. But you need to be having these courage sprints. And if you do that, then what it does is that it helps you get into action. The minute you're in action, you can actually start to do all the rest of it. And when you start doing this process, you're going to find that you're no longer a novice. You stop criticizing yourself and you start to actually champion yourself. Like, as difficult as that might seem in the beginning, I would strongly recommend that every one of you do this. The Prophet ﷺ said, Kullukum ra'in, all of you are leaders, right? All of you are leaders. That means that you can lead your life. And you are very powerful the minute you take this on and you start making that who you are. When you make that who you are, which is who Allah created you to be, you're going to love your life. You're going to love your life. You're going to feel the confidence. You're going to do the things that, that are new to you, but you're going to do it confidently, knowing that you're going to be all right no matter what. The discomfort of your zone of comfort now, leaving that will not be such a problem. And you'll be able to leave that and go into a new comfort zone that you can flourish in. And Insha'Allah, I'm going to leave you on that. These are things I practice myself, and I suggest you practice it. You will love it as you start to implement it into your life. It will help you to build a confidence that is already there within you. Inshallah, I'm going to leave you on that. JazakumAllahu khair. Hey guys, thanks for listening in on this podcast. If you are ready to uplevel your mind, emotions, and relationships using a Quranic solution, you're going to love this podcast and what we are going to be sharing over the coming episodes. This is the most fundamental training that you're going to go through in your life. You can use it to transform your life, your mental and emotional health, your relationships, how you parent, how you are in your marriage, and truly your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you are loving this and you want more of it, click subscribe, or if you want one of our free trainings, go to themuslimlifecoach.org and sign up for the free training. You're going to love it. I'll see you on the inside. JazakumAllahu khair.